Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining us at the table this morning, Democratic political strategist BJ McAllister, activist and the executive director of Equality Maine, Gia Drew, and Republican political strategist Garrett Mason. Good morning to you all. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. See you.
First this week, the Commissioner of Maine's Department of Health and Human Services is taking a new job. Jean Lambrou is stepping down at the end of this month to work in health policy and teach at Harvard University. Chris Costa spoke to Lambrou this week about the ongoing child welfare issues. She says the department is continuing to take steps to improve.
We are very committed to a child safety and family well-being plan that we announced last year. We're developing places where families can go in communities, developing our community partnerships, because doing this within the four squares of just the child welfare system is not sufficient. The more we can support these families before that fork in the road where there might be abuse, there might be neglect, that's really what we're trying to do. And I think the governor has that plan, and I hope that she and my successor continue that work.
The governor will name an acting DHHS commissioner at the end of the month if a permanent replacement for Lambrou hasn't been nominated. Reaction to this, BJ?
Well, I would say first off, Commissioner Lambrou has done a lot to transform healthcare in Maine. I think it's easy to forget because it was so long ago, but on day one, expanding Medicaid so more people had access to healthcare is important. But I think the other thing, and I think there'll be agreement between Garrett and I on this probably, the child welfare system needs serious overhaul right now, and part of that is the fact that the employees that work in those programs aren't being paid enough, they're being overworked, and that's something that I hope the next commissioner will address.
Garrett, there is obviously a lot more work to be done.
Oh yeah, and listen, I will say this, DHHS commissioner is the hardest job in state government. No one's gonna like you, everybody's gonna have an issue with you, and so I commend her for taking on the job. I think we can look back at past DHHS commissioners and see that everybody had to take their hit with something in the department. But I actually do agree with a lot of what BJ said. I do think that we have huge holes in the department. The child welfare and safety issue is massive. We need to do more to encourage foster care. We need to, and getting good quality people to do foster care for the state. We need to do more in making sure the department is responsible for the children that are in their care. So I think that's definitely something that's going to have to be focused on with the next DHHS commissioner.
And Gia, at the end of the day, this impacts some of the most vulnerable in our state.
It does, and I think that's what makes this job so difficult. So many Mainers really depend on DHHS for their services and protection. But Jean Lambrou got us through COVID, unlike any other state. So she was a champion and did a really, solid job, but there's still many holes in the department.
All right. On to the next topic now. In national politics, Marjorie Taylor Greene failed in her effort to remove House Speaker Mike Johnson. After months of threats, Greene made a motion on the House floor as privileged, meaning the House had to vote on the motion within 2 legislative days. But Speaker Johnson, his Republican allies, and the majority of Democrats joined forces against her effort. Representatives voting 359 to 43 to table. BJ, not every day Democrats side with Republicans like this.
Yeah, no question. But actually, I think that Speaker Johnson put it best when he said that this Congress will be defined by these scandals and this dysfunction. And it goes to show what happens when you give Republicans the keys to Congress. And we've had a front row seat to it. And even their own speaker agrees that it's been completely, utterly dysfunctional.
Gia, does this mean that this faction of the GOP is losing its power, maybe?
Well, what I think it means to me is that, the primary season is virtually over. And this was, I think, a race to the middle. I think the leadership sees that they have to work to show America that Congress can work. And so that's what I'm taking from this.
Garrett?
I love it when BJ agrees with Republicans. That's wonderful. I actually really do like Speaker Johnson. I think he's a good speaker. But I think this is much ado about nothing. I mean, listen, MTG put this forward. This was part of a negotiation at the beginning on a narrowly divided Congress that anybody could make a privileged motion to declare the chair vacant. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. You look at parliaments and other Congresses across the world, they throw people out on a whim. And, I don't think that it's that big of a deal. I think it holds people accountable, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, I think she got less than 50 votes on this, so I mean, I think people learned from the last one, and they didn't really want to go through that again. So, process worked.
But I think some people are looking at it as, what does it mean for the future of the GOP that this kind of far right Marjorie Taylor Greene, MAGA, Trump-supporting faction didn't advance something like this?
I mean,
I don't know.
I think that they certainly have not lost their touch because our nominee is the founder of MAGA. So, I mean, I think that a lot of Republican primary voters identify and support that brand of the Republican Party, and I think that you're seeing a lot of people come alongside of them. You know, you had a lot of really good representatives vote to not take that motion up, and you know, people who are very conservative in their own right. So I don't think it's that. I think it's much ado about nothing. I think we move on from here.
Sounds good. Speaking of that nominee, Stormy Daniels testified in former President Donald Trump's hush money trial this week, which at times got pretty graphic. Daniels saying she never spoke with Trump about the $130,000 payment she received and didn't know if the former president was aware or involved with the transaction. Trump has been charged with falsifying business records to cover up those payments to Daniels, who claims she had an affair with him. Now, Garrett, some Republicans drawing parallels to the Bill Clinton-Monica Lewinsky scandal, but this is different.
It's something. I mean, this is the entire prosecution's, this is their linchpin, you know, subject matter. This person is going to put Donald Trump away. But we're talking about a person who is in the adult film industry. She has already admitted that what she said happened did not happen in a signed statement. And, you know, the testimony is laughable, has nothing to do with the case at all. So, I mean, I think this continues the political persecution of Donald Trump. I've said it on this show many times. It's a laughable claim. I think the president is going to walk away from this unscathed again and higher in the polls.
BJ.
Well, look, this is a situation where a former president, a candidate, is sitting trial right before America's eyes while he's on the campaign trail. And when push comes to shove, it's very clear that he has so many moral shortcomings. I find it difficult to believe that everyday Americans are going to want to support somebody in this case. And the last thing I'll say is I think that one of the most troubling things about this entire case, particularly the Stormy Daniels testimony, is the fact that Trump's attorneys traditionally and religiously have been questioning her version of the story. And I think, you know, in America, we should believe women.
Gia, is it just me, or does it feel like the everyday Americans aren't really paying attention to this?
Well, I think because Trump had this hidden 8 years ago from the American public, because they buried that story, I think they're just learning a lot more about it these days. And I think the portrayal of women and women who do work like Stormy Daniels and trying to portray them, you know, as something that they're not, I think is really hurtful to folks who are in that industry. And I think this just goes to show that the industry can be really challenging and really hard to be in. And I think this just highlights, you know, what ends someone will go to get elected.
I got to respond.
Okay.
There's a lot here. I think, but you literally have a witness who signed a document who said, I did not do the things that I'm saying that I did. She absolutely signed a document saying that. The judge, who is completely corrupt, has a daughter who works in Democrat politics for Kamala Harris, censored him. That's it. That censored the president from even talking about that letter. There is so many holes in this story, and it's a trumped up charge. And the other thing I'll say about all of Donald Trump's persecutions here, these are I think a third of his of these issues are being brought under the Espionage Act. Do you know why people are bringing it under the Espionage Act? Because they censor him from talking. He cannot talk about why he did what he did. This is used for people who are spies of other countries, not for presidents of the United States who have to take actions under their own authority. It's a joke. The entire trial is ridiculous.
But on moral grounds, the question here is if the president should have paid someone to keep quiet. Regardless, like, is that's the question we're talking about.
Settlements are paid all the time. Settlements are paid all the time, and non-disclosures are signed after the fact. This is not the president saying that he paid $10,000 for drywall and it was, you know, $10,000 to keep somebody quiet. This is a settlement charge, and that's been testified to many, many times, and it happens in industry all the time, and this is not uncommon.
Garrett's right. There are holes that we haven't heard yet, but stay tuned because Michael Cohen is going to take the stand and he will fill in those holes and talk about exactly what Garrett's talking about, which is how they covered up these hush money payments. And I can't wait to see it.
All right, we'll leave it there. We're going to take a quick break. The Weekend Morning Report is back right after this. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining us at the table this morning, Democratic political strategist B.J. McAllister, activist and the executive director of Equality Maine, Gia Drew, and Republican political strategist Garrett Mason. Good morning to you all.
Morning, everyone.
Let's start out in Augusta, where things are finally wrapping up, but not without some drama. Governor Mills slamming the Democratic-led Appropriations Committee for ignoring her advice on a number of spending bills, claiming they pushed the budget to a breaking point. Those on the committee and Democratic leaders say they did nothing out of the ordinary to fund critical programs. BJ, what gives here?
Well, look, I think the Appropriations Committee funded a lot of very good initiatives, including ways to expand affordable housing, to help survivors of sexual assault. And this is not abnormal what they've done. They do it every budget. But the other part of this is to claim that the budget is going to be out of whack when there's over $900 million in rainy day funds and other savings, just doesn't add up.
But some Republicans on the committee are even saying this is fairly standard, right?
Yeah, it is fairly standard to spend the excess revenues, but what you have going on is you have a completely irresponsible Democrat-led legislature for the past 4 years who has pushed all of these fundings into the out years. So it's not this year that I think the governor is really talking about. It's the following years where we're starting programs that were passed over in this time, and so it's the future that the governor is worried about. And the OFPR analysts talked about this in the Appropriations Committee as well. That the future is not looking bright because of overspending. I mean, when I first took office, when I was in the legislature in 2010, the budget was a little under $6 billion, and now we're approaching $11 billion in 14 years. There's a lot of spending going on, and I think the governor's right. She was right to call it out.
But Gia, there are still the argument here that there are critical pieces and critical programs. BJ mentioned a few.
Absolutely. I think this is why lawmakers, went this extra step. There are bills and policies that the Democrats are trying to get through that really do try to, respond to the needs of Mainers. And I don't think they're overspending. That money that is sitting there needs to be spent, and I think they're spending it in a way that is really helpful for Mainers.
And one more thing I would add too. I mean, look, since Democrats have controlled Augusta since 2018. Every single year there has been a budget surplus. So this argument that Democrats are irresponsible with your dollars has not.
But if that's the case, why is Governor Mills making a big deal about this?
I don't think it makes a lot of sense. If I were to guess, it's because she sees this legislature tying her hands on her next budget proposal because they are spending the future dollars.
Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is absolutely a case of overspending in the future. It's hiding what we're going to spend today and putting it in out years, and it is going to handicap future legislatures and future governors when they do their proposals.
We shall see. Now to this, with an interview with Governor Mills earlier this week, News Center Maine's Chris Costa asked her about the fallout from her allowing a 72-hour waiting period bill for gun sales to become law without her signature. One popular sporting goods store, the Kittery Trading Post, threatening to leave the state. Here was her response.
I talked with those businesses before I made my decision. I talked to people all over the state of Maine, people on both sides of the issue, and I think there are valid points to be made, people of goodwill on both sides of that issue. We'll see how that works out. In the meantime, we are seeing real strong effectiveness, significant benefits from the extreme risk protection order law that's in effect and has just been strengthened.
Now, Garrett, is that a fair response?
Yeah, I wish the governor would have vetoed it. I think she was very up in the air on the whole thing. But listen, the 72-hour waiting period bill, I think, is an absolute failure of the process. This bill was introduced as a response to the Lewiston shooting. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to put bills in response to horrible events, they should be, if enacted, have been able to do something about the situation that we faced. This bill does none of that. Robert Card had those weapons well beyond 72 hours. He had a month ahead of time. This would have done nothing but the Lewiston shooting. This is taking a crisis and turning it into an opportunity for people who oppose gun rights. When you sat on the floor and you heard all the arguments, it quickly changed from Lewiston shooting to suicide prevention. This was not an honestly put forward bill. This bill was actually introduced in the first session and failed. And in my opinion, it's going to cause a mess at places like Kittery Trading Post, and especially those gun shops across the border who can just simply hop over and do business over there.
And Gia, even the governor didn't make mention of the Lewiston shooting in her rationale for just allowing it to become law, but did mention the suicide angle.
Absolutely. I think most Mainers wanted some type of really substantial gun reform, and I think the 72-hour window really is going to save people's lives. In addition to suicide, just other people who are going through emotional moments, having that little pause will definitely save people's lives. I really wish the governor would have signed this bill rather than this sort of trying to thread the needle of not signing it. I think it sends a really complicated message to businesses.
Yeah, Gia's absolutely right. This bill will save lives, full stop. And that's why we heard from advocates who are representing people in domestic violence situations. That's why we heard from advocates who work in suicide prevention. And whether or not this had something to do with Lewiston or not is not the point. The fact is the Maine legislature and the governor, by letting this go into law without her signature, but letting it go into law, saved Mainers' lives, and that matters.
And I have to push back on that a little bit because, you know, we definitely did hear from victims of domestic violence. We heard from people who have that take. We also heard it from people who want to have a weapon and were in dangerous situations. And under this law, they have to wait 72 hours to get a weapon. That takes away their rights, their constitutional rights to have a weapon. So we definitely did hear from both sides of that argument. But the fact of the matter is, I do think this bill is going to be challenged. There is actually a robust group that's getting together between Sportsman Alliance of Maine and others who are going to challenge this. I think that 72-hour waiting periods are going to be thrown out across the country through court decisions.
And it's almost like the governor expected this in her decision.
She is a prosecutor. She knows the law.
All right. I want to end with a big national headline. President Joe Biden appearing to take a bit of a tougher stance on Israel, saying he will stop sending bombs if the country goes ahead with a planned ground offensive in Rafah. The warning by the president isn't being welcomed by everyone. Democratic Representative Jared Golden posted this on X. Quote, the president's actions signal weakness to Hamas, to our allies and adversaries abroad and at home. Congress appropriated funds for arms and ammunition for Israel, and they should be promptly delivered. BJ, do you agree?
Well, I think it's good that the president is finally taking another look at this and starting to make changes. I think he needs to go even further. Look, at the end of the day, every day we're learning about something new about this conflict, but what becomes abundantly clear every day is that there are horrible acts that are happening, and our involvement is troubling from a moral ground.
Garrett, do you agree with Congressman Golden?
Absolutely. I think the congressman is 100% correct. And let's go back to October 7th and let's go talk about how this started. This started with Hamas preparing an invasion of Israel and killing, raping 1,000 people in Israel. And this was the response they get. Hamas is the elected government of the Palestinian people, the elected government. This did not happen out of nowhere. This happened as a response to an action. Now, the other thing I find absolutely curious about this is Donald Trump was impeached for not sending money to Ukraine that eventually got there anyways on time and, standard, but he still got impeached for it. Here you have the President of the United States from another party saying that he won't deliver arms that Congress has passed, and he's not being impeached for it. I find that fascinating.
Gia, on a bigger scale here, some are looking at this as the president caving to pressure from those protests on college campuses for the re-election.
I wouldn't say it's caving. I think that the president is really listening to what the country is telling him, and I think, I wish he had moved sooner, but he is also in a complicated place. Like you mentioned before, there are other really powerful actors in the Middle East, and I think making some changes, but he has to do that with Israel, so other countries like Iran don't jump right back in.
All right, let's wrap things up with winners, losers. Gia, we'll start with you.
Winners, I don't know if you're a sports fan. I'm a big sports fan, so watching the Celtics and Bruins every night. So I don't know if I'm a winner or a loser. I know I'm tired, but I love watching Boston sports.
So winners, losers, that was both of them, I guess. BJ?
Well, Gia, I'm a little hurt as a big Red Sox fan because my winner of the week is the Red Sox pitching staff, who have the lowest ERA in baseball. No one saw that coming. And the loser of the week will have to be, RFK Jr. It's been a tough week of press for him, and a fascinating thing to watch.
Yeah, we didn't even get there, did we? Yeah. Garrett?
I think my winner this week's is Maine moms. It's Mother's Day, and I certainly miss my mom every day. I'm glad I have a wonderful wife who's a fantastic mom to our little girl. So I'd have to say that's my winner of the week. The loser is the dads that have to make breakfast that don't know how to cook.
All right, Garrett, BJ, Gia, thank you so much. That does it for this week's Political Brew. Remember, you can watch anytime online or on News Center Maine Plus. The Morning Report is back right after this.